The air had that late October bite, cool enough to sting my fingers every time I opened the door to give out candy. By 10 o'clock, the neighborhood had gone quiet. I sat in my recliner, a half-finished beer sweating on the table, some old horror flick called Wrong Turn 2 on my 60-inch TV. I remember thinking how peaceful it felt, the quiet of a Halloween night. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement outside. Just a flicker at first, something small under the orange glow of the streetlight. I got up, went to the window, and there he was. A little boy, maybe 8 or 9, standing perfectly still at the end of my driveway. He wore a cheap clown mask, one of those dollar store kinds with cracked paint and a plastic smile too wide for any real face. He had a pillowcase in his hand, sagging like it was full of rocks instead of candy. At first I figured he was lost or waiting for his parents, maybe a prank. But something about how still he was made my chest tighten. Kids move. They fidget, shuffle, breathe heavy. I opened the door and called out, "Hey, you okay out there?" Nothing. The kid didn't even flinch. "Hey!" I said louder, stepping onto the porch. Still nothing. The porch light buzzed and dimmed for a split second. One of those electrical hiccups that shouldn't mean anything. But I swear I could feel him looking straight at me through that mask, and the vibes didn't feel good. "Where's your family, kid?" I asked. "You lost?" That's when the boy tilted his head. Slowly. So slowly that it made my stomach turn. Then, in the time it took me to blink, he was gone. I swear on my life, 1 second he was there, and the next, nothing. No sound, no running, no footsteps on the pavement. Just gone. I jogged down to the end of the driveway, scanning the yards, the bushes, the street. Nobody. Not even a shadow. It didn't make sense. There was nowhere to hide. When I went back inside, the movie was still playing, but I didn't care anymore. I locked the door, turned off the TV, and sat there in silence, wondering what that little clown was doing out there. Midnight rolled around before I finally started to calm down. I remember thinking about calling the cops, but what was I going to say? There was a weird kid wearing a clown mask in my driveway, and then he teleported away. Then the phone rang. It was my neighbor, Mrs. Levin. Older lady, lives 2 doors down. Her voice was shaking. "Greg," she said, "did you see that boy outside tonight?" My stomach nodded instantly. "What boy?" I asked, even though I already knew. "He was in my yard," she said, "right by the porch." Clown mask, very small and all alone. He was just running around my house trying to look in all the windows. I told her I'd keep an eye out, but she said she'd already called the police. I hung up, walked to the window, and peeked through the curtain. The street was dead quiet, but at the edge of my driveway it was the clown mask, the same one. I stared at it for a long time, almost in disbelief, but trying to convince myself to go outside and pick it up. I just stood there, in my house, watching, waiting for something to move outside. After a while, I turned away from the window, and I swear, right before I did, I saw something in the reflection behind me, a small shape, standing in the hallway. I turned around quickly, and there wasn't anybody or anyone there in the house with me. I quickly looked around frantically, but nothing. I thought to myself, maybe I'm starting to lose my mind or something. I stood there frozen until a knock at the door made me jump. It was the police. The mask was now gone from my driveway as I stepped outside to talk to the officers. I told them everything. Everything except what I thought I saw in the reflection moments earlier. I didn't want them coming inside and making a big scene. I didn't want to be dragged into whatever this was going to turn into. I just wanted peace, quiet, and sleep. Nothing really happened, I guess. Some creepy little clown running around the neighborhood. That's all it was, right? But I can't shake the feeling I got when I was standing there, staring at that clown mask. That strange, cold silence. Like he wasn't just looking at me. He was studying me, waiting for something I still don't understand, and I hope I never will. But then at 3 a.m. in the morning... Oh, come on! You can't be serious, that little bastard!
I met Bob in early September, right after he got hired at our company. He worked in the same department as me, data entry, nothing glamorous, just spreadsheets and long silences. He was the kind of guy you don't notice at first. Pale, quiet, slightly off. Always smiling, but never with his eyes. At first, I felt bad for him. He didn't know anyone, and I remember what that was like when I first started. So I invited him to sit with us during lunch. That was my first mistake. He was overly eager, talking fast, laughing too loud, hijacking the conversation way too often. But his topics were strange. The first conversation he started at lunch that day was about Jeff Dahmer. He said, "Did you all know Dahmer used to make sandwiches for his neighbors?" Nobody knows what was in them. Then he smiled and busted out laughing as everyone sat silent. It was so awkward because most of us have seen the Jeffrey Dahmer Netflix series, and we all know about the sandwich scene. He proceeded to tell us about Ed Gein's favorite dessert, cheddar cheese shredded on apple pie. Then he talked about Willie Picton, and how he used to mix pork with unspeakable things up in Canada. He said all this while calmly eating his tuna sandwich. After that day, I started avoiding him, but he was clearly trying to pry in a solid friendship outside of work. Over the next few weeks, he started showing up everywhere I went. At the coffee shop near work, at the gas station by my apartment, once even at the gym. Every time he'd grin and say, "Hey Thomas, crazy coincidence." One night, I went to a sports bar with a few coworkers to watch the game. Halfway through the second quarter, someone tapped my shoulder. It was Bob. He said, "I saw your car outside. Mind if I join?" He pulled up a chair and just sat there, silent, staring, smiling every time I looked over. When my friend Lisa mentioned she liked true crime documentaries, his whole face lit up. He started listing these criminals by birth date. Ramirez was February 29th, he said. A leap year baby. You know what that means? We all went quiet. None of us knew what he meant. I left early that night. When I got home, there was a sticky note on my windshield. It said, "Glad we could hang out again, Thomas." At work, he began leaving things on my desk. Newspaper clippings about things he thought I'd like, photocopies of old pin-up girls, and once a drawing he'd made of me. I looked cartoonish, except my eyes were so crazy looking. I couldn't believe it, and I was on high alert to distance myself from him now more than ever. HR didn't take it seriously. They said he was probably just socially awkward. Then came the messages. Texts from Bob's work phone saying, "Can't wait for my birthday party," or "We're going to have so much fun, Thomas." His birthday was Halloween. He'd been reminding everyone about it since the day he was hired, and now it was coming up fast. By the third week of October, I'd stopped responding to him completely. He'd wave in the halls, I'd pretend not to see. Then Halloween came, and that's when everything fell apart. I took the day off work, told my boss I was sick. I just wanted to avoid him. That night, I went to a friend's house outside of town, far from the city, far from him. We were carving pumpkins, drinking, trying to have a normal night, a nice little gathering of good people. Around 10 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was a text from Bobby Boy. "You forgot to wish me happy birthday." I didn't reply. 5 minutes later, another text came through. "Don't worry, I found you." But I knew it wasn't just a prank. I looked out the window, and in the glow of the porch light, I saw something that made my stomach drop. A shape standing by the trees. It was a man in a cheap plastic Halloween mask, a skull. He was holding something in his hand, long and sharp, but I couldn't really see exactly what it was. He lifted it like a toast, then turned and disappeared into the darkness. My friend Jake went out with a flashlight but didn't see anyone. I stayed the night there, but I didn't sleep. When I got home the next morning, there was an envelope taped to my front door. Inside was a photo of me at the party, taken through the window. It was one of the most disturbing experiences in my life, seeing that photo. It had to be Bob. I went into work reluctantly. I was feeling so much anxiety, and I couldn't afford to take another day off work. As soon as I turned the corner toward my cubicle, I froze. My entire workspace was destroyed. The monitor was cracked, papers shredded, chair overturned. There were footprints in the spilled coffee on the floor. And sitting neatly on top of the wreckage was a slice of apple pie, with shredded cheddar cheese sprinkled over it. No one saw who did it, but I knew exactly who it was. Bob never came back to work after that day, and he never tried to contact me again. I still can't bring myself to eat apple pie. I used to love it so much when my mom would make it for me. It used to be one of my favorite desserts.
It was Halloween night, and for the first time in my life, I was home alone. Mom and Dad were at a costume party across town, something they'd been planning for weeks. My brother Eric was away at college, probably at his own party somewhere, wearing the same half-hearted vampire costume he'd recycled 3 years in a row. I told them I didn't mind staying in. Honestly, I liked Halloween. The smell of candles and caramel in the air, the soft crunch of leaves on the driveway, the faint laughter of kids echoing down the street. It all felt safe, familiar, like the kind of night where nothing truly bad could happen. The evening started normal enough. I handed out chocolate bars, lollipops, and those cheap candy eyeballs that nobody ever eats. I told the kids they looked amazing, laughed when a group of teenagers jumped out from the bushes with fake blood on their faces. The usual chaos. By 9:30, it had all gone quiet. The air felt different once the last group left. Still. Empty. The neighborhood, once buzzing with life, seemed to collectively hold its breath. I turned off the porch light, blew out the jack-o'-lanterns, and sank into the couch. My phone screen lit the room in soft blue as I scrolled through social media. Costumes, parties, people having fun. Then, 3 heavy bangs on the front door. Not knocks, bangs. Violent, urgent. I froze. The sound didn't even register as real at first, like my brain couldn't process that someone was there. I got up slowly, my legs trembling. The hallway light flickered as I moved toward the door, every step echoing through the quiet house. A woman stood outside. Her hair was wild, tangled in clumps. Her coat was soaked, maybe from the drizzle, maybe from something else. Her eyes were wide, unfocused, and she was breathing so fast I could see her shoulders trembling. "Please!" she screamed. "Please! My baby! My baby is inside your house! She's inside! Let me in!" The words didn't make sense. My heart thudded painfully in my chest as I stammered, "What? You've got the wrong house. There's no one here but me." She shook her head violently. "No! No, I heard her crying. She's in there. You have to let me in before it's too late." Her voice cracked, and the raw desperation in it made my stomach twist. For a moment, I almost unlocked the door. But then I looked at her eyes, and something about them felt wrong. Not just fear. Something else. Something darker. Her pupils were huge, swallowing the color of her irises. She wasn't just scared. She looked possessed by panic. "I'm calling the police," I said, my voice trembling. She froze, completely still. Then, in a low, broken whisper, she said, "You don't hear her?" The words hung there. "No," I said softly. She tilted her head, her expression unreadable, a mixture of confusion and pity. Then she turned and walked off the porch, fading into the dark street. I waited by the door for a minute, just staring through the peephole, expecting her to come back. but the street was empty. Finally, I locked the door, checked the windows, even looked in the back rooms just to be sure. My heart was still hammering. I told myself she was just unstable, maybe lost, maybe drunk, and tried to let it go. Upstairs, I sat on my bed, the glow of my phone screen the only light in the room. I tried calling Mom. No answer. Tried again. Still nothing. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. That's when I heard it. Glass breaking downstairs. My body went completely rigid. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't in my head. Someone was in the house. Every creak of the floorboard beneath my feet sounded deafening. I called the police, and the dispatch said they would be on their way immediately. I grabbed the nearest thing, a lamp, clutching it like a weapon as I stepped into the hallway. I could feel the air moving, cold, sharp air that shouldn't have been there. From the top of the stairs, I could see the living room light flickering. The front window was shattered inward, curtains blowing gently like breathing lungs. But no one was there. No movement. No woman. Just silence. Then my phone buzzed in my hand, vibrating so hard it nearly slipped from my fingers. Mom calling. I answered immediately. "Mom! Someone broke in. Please come home." For a few seconds, there was nothing but static, like wind through a microphone. Then a faint voice came through, warped, distant, and wrong. "You shouldn't have ignored her." My heart stopped. "Mom?" I whispered. The line went dead. I stood there in the half-light, staring at the dark screen, until my knees gave out and I stumbled into the bathroom. I locked the door and slid down the wall, shaking, trying not to sob out loud. 15 minutes later, red and blue lights flickered through the window. The police. When they came in, they found the window shattered, the door still locked from the inside. They said it looked like someone had tried to break in. Or maybe out. Nothing was missing. No signs of anyone hiding. Just broken glass. They told me the woman must have been confused. Maybe she'd lost her baby somewhere else. Maybe she was having an episode. They said I was safe now. But when they left, the house felt wrong. Like it wasn't empty. I swept the glass, patched the window, tried to move on. But that night, and every night since, when the house gets quiet enough, I still hear it. A faint, muffled voice drifting through the crack in the glass. "Please, she's still in there." And sometimes, I hear crying. Not outside. From somewhere downstairs.